Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Utski. In this video I'm gonna show you my version of Audio Manager. In the past, in a different YouTube channel, I made an Audio Manager tutorial as well, but now it's way better. But essentially it's kind of the same. Just to warn that I don't watch tutorials in order to make mine, so there's a chance that people out there made a better audio manager than me, so I always support you checking them out. The source code will be in the description in my GitHub repo, but I'm gonna warn you, if Microsoft GitHub allow private repositories be used to train generative AI, ignoring the license of the project, I will no longer utilize it, and I obviously will remove the repository as well because I'm not satisfied with the current state of Gen AI. Obviously, there's a lot of problems related to intellectual property, mental health and psychosis, illegal material, and a very important one, not exhorting the critical skills such as critical thinking, reasoning, and creativity. Currently, I am against the current situation, but remember, generative AI is basically a mix of algorithm. So in general, there is no reason to hate open specific algorithm, rather shame on the people misusing it and exploiting it. Okay, so let's go. First, I will show you the what I changed in the project, then the code, then the examples. Okay, so here, go to project settings. In the input map, I created an action called microphone, that is the right mouse button. In the globals, I added an audio manager, that is my main script. And here in general, I changed the viewport size and stretch mode. I also here in the audio, and I enabled the advanced settings in the that check button, so I'm able to enable these input. Okay, so now let's go to the script. So here is my audio manager. So first of all, I created two constants, one for the config file path and the second for the password, because I will use the save and load with encrypted path. Okay, I created a variable for the config file and more three constants. This will be used to instantiate the amount of audio stream players I want. There is a lot of ways to make an audio manager, because remember, we are dealing with algorithm, and as I said a lot of times, algorithm means a set of finite steps in order to solve a problem. So you can take any amount of steps in order to solve the same problem. Okay, so in the past, I instantiated, and right after the audio finished, I deleted the node, but I no longer do this. Okay, so this will be used to instantiate every single audio manager I will use throughout the game. Okay, so you can obviously set a higher number than one, like 20 if you want. I created a music player, that is an audio stream player equals to audio stream player.new, and I created one variable called musics, that is an array of audio strings that I would preload the musics, the OSTs I would use in this in a game. So since this is an array, so you can already conclude that I will use index to access which music I want to play next. And I created two other variables in order to make this happen. So the first one is a boolean called random music. Basically, this control which if I want to set a random music to be played every single time, or if I want to progress, like incrementing the music index, okay, and the music index that is an integer. So I created three arrays: sound players 2D, and sound players 3D. Basically, an array of arrays, and right below an enum called sound types. So far, only four: ambient, UI, general, and VoIP. Like, if you're thinking about some games such as Minecraft, I'm pretty sure you have like 8 or 10 options of different audios, okay, sound types. So it's totally up to your game designing part, which sounds is more are important and how they should be distincted, like separated, and a dictionary of sounds. Why not an array such as the music? Because I want to play the sounds with by their names. I might have very specific different, slightly different sounds, like such as click on a button, and also click on a button, but this button cannot do the action, so it's that ping, something like this. So it's like it can be like slightly similar, and I want to this be visible, not like guessing by the index. Something that with OSTs I'm more than okay to do this, because music in real life are ordered in albums by index, and usually you don't have a huge amount of OSTs differently from the sound effects that usually you have a plenty. Okay, so I created an input player that is audio stream player, input capture effect that is audio effect capture, audio recording that is audio stream WAV, input record effect that is audio effect record, input microphone that is an audio stream player, and a playback that is audio stream generator playback. So these will be mostly used to either record the audio from the player and or be used for VoIP communication. Know that this VoIP idea, like not exactly 100%, because I didn't finish this, because I would need to make a dedicated server first, and to be honest, I should have done already, but because of procrastination, I didn't record for you. But it's very simple, in my opinion. I cannot test and not even implement the VoIP currently. Okay, so this is not the complete version, but this is more than enough for most part of the games, because VoIP usually it's not a necessary, like mandatory for most part of the games, unless it's a very competitive multiplayer online game. Okay, so so far I'm okay with this. So okay, now load. I check if the config file is defined. If not, I instantiate. Then I load the file, because this is the idea of the function. Load the configurations, the data configurations, and I set every single bus from the audio server. It is linear volume. So first of all, so audio server is a global object that make it way easier to manage audio in the engine. Okay, so these lines basically access the audio server, pick the audio bus, if audio bus is basically, it's almost like a channel for audios. So you have the master, probably you know this. Most part of the games have a master sound slider, and you might have like a sound music, such as in Minecraft you have blocks, you have ambient, you have host friendly creatures, and so on. So these bus are basically these type of channels, and as you can see I have 7. Actually the first one, that is the master, is like by default, and you cannot delete as long as I know, and the rest are the ones that I added. Okay, so I set the linear volume is the volume set go that goes from 0 to 1, is a float number. So differently from decibels, you set like from 0% to 100% basically. And I open loading the config file. I set each one of the volume from the config file, accessing using get value from the section audio, and each one I have. So as you can see, I have the master, music, ambient, UI, general, vibe, and input. You might have way more than this. As I said, um, Minecraft, Minecraft, I think it's 11, like the master plus 10 more. It's up to you. And the third parameter is a default value. So if the section does not exist, will be set 1. And the save method. So I check if the config file is not set. If not, I the same idea. Set volume, passing the section audio, the name, and audio server dot get bus volume linear. Okay, passing the index of the audio bus, and in the end save encrypted with pass the path for the file and the password. My password I showed you, that is 1234, but obviously you gotta set this either dynamically or with the name of the project. Usually it's the name of the project, okay? And the reset function. So I remove, basically I delete the file. I check if the file exists. If exists, I delete with the dir access remove absolute. Then I loop in each one of the audio bus. Actually, I don't need -1. I'm sorry. So I check if the counter is 0. I just set the volume to 1, like the default volume. And if not, because 0 is the master, I remove the bus. Basically, I delete it, then I reset the sound players 2D and 3D. Then I do the same thing. I add the buses, then I load, then I add the players. You're gonna understand this later. But this same code, like these add buses, the load, and so on, will be used as well in the ready function. Okay, so open the audio manager, be loaded. The same 5 lines will be used, so don't worry. So the add buses method, basically I add every single bus audio channel I will use. Okay, so first I add a bus, then I set the bus name, passing the index and the string that is the name of the bus. Then I set the bus send. Basically, I make them dependent or under, or I don't know, the master. Okay, so in order to the master bus control and like modify the other audios as well, I need to make the buses of theirs be submitted to the master bus. Okay, so basically I do exactly this with this send. okay? And I do to every single one: music, ambient, UI, general, VoIP, input. And in the input, I add two bus effects. These bus effects are also effects like EQ, compressor, and so on, but also some capabilities. And these two that I instantiated and I passed in here, that is the capture and the record, it will be used in order to make the VoIP possible, and the recording of my sound, my microphone, okay, respectively. And I pass the effect index as well. I didn't make the input be dependent of the master audio bus because this input is basically my microphone volume. So when you like check these multiplayer games with VoIP, such as Peak, I think you do not control your microphone volume. I might be wrong. Like you don't slide the master volume, like what you hear, and it affects your microphone volume. Okay, basically the master will control what I hear, and in this case is what I sound. I can still use the input bus volume in order to change my microphone volume, but it should not be dependent to the master. I don't like if I want to play the game muted, so I slide down the master volume, but I still want to like use my microphone. It does not make sense, right? The method play music passing the index. So I check if the music's array size is lesser or equals to index. Remember, arrays start on 0. So it's basically the end of an array is 80 size less 1. So if you have an array of 8 positions, it goes from 0 to 7, right? So if someone, for example, try to play the music 8 equals to the array size, but the array does not have the position, the index 8, only 7. So the index should be always smaller than the array size. Okay, basically check if the music exists. If exists, I set the music index equals to this index. I update the music player dot string equals to the music in the position of music index, and I play the music. So basically, I assign the string using my array. Okay. Okay. The method music finished. This will be used. This is linked to the signal from music player dot finished, and basically I check if the boolean random music is true. If it is, I pick a random number between 0 and the music size less 1 minus 1. Else, so if it is not a random music, basically I iterate in the music index plus 1. So basically in music index plus 1. So basically I go to the next music. As you can see, I use the method wrap I. You don't know what is this? Basically, it makes like you have the first part, that is the statement or the calculation. The second parameter is the minimum value, and the third parameter is the maximum value. So if you have a calculation such as the minimum number is 0 and the max is 8, if you have a statement that is basically something plus 2 and goes on, like upon reach the number 8 and try to add 2, actually it will save the remaining number, go to the minimum value, and then re-add or re-subtract the value. So basically this make this range infinite. I can basically go on and on. So this basically make a wheel walk. I go around the circle and reach the same point again. In the end, I call the method play music passing the music index. P.S. If I have certain music that should not be played randomly, so for example, if you have a main title OST or an indie game OST or something like this, you gotta make exceptions. Basically, just make a either use match passing the index and ignoring these numbers, this index, or if you have a like a specific content that it will be only that should be only called directly with our play music, for example, so you gotta make this if analysis or matches with the exceptions, okay? Such as this, like if my if the music index plus 1 is equals to 0, that is my, for example, main title, I will ignore, or I will add one more, or I'll do whatever. And in this random part, basically you gotta wanna wrap these with an while, for example. So while the music index is equals to or is inside of an array, right? So for example, if this array dot has the music that I don't want to be played, so for example, the number 1 is my main title, the number 10 is my end music, so I don't want this, so this random should be inside of this, okay? The method play sound, passing a sound name, the player, and priority. So this is used by others play sounds, but I will explain anyway. So I check if the sounds dictionary has that said sound. If not, I will return null. I instantiate a variable called player, and I loop inside of the array players. So if P, that is the player, is not playing it, I will assign the player to the current iterated player, and I will break this loop. If not, I check the priority flag. As you can see, the boolean right there, that is by default true. This priority basically just something like this. If I have 20 audio stream players and all of them are being used, if the priority is false, so the audio basically won't be played. As you can see right below, so if priority, I check if a player is not set, or the current player, or so the player is set, and the current playback position divided by length is greater than the player get position divided by the string dot length, I replace. So what this means, imagine you have an audio 5 seconds long. The playback position of the current player is 2.5. So if you take 2.5 and divide it by the full length, that is 5, you will get 0.5, that is 50%. If the iterated audio that is 10 seconds long, for example, is 6, so is 6 divided by 10 is 0.6, or 60%. So the iterated player is closer to the end than the current one. So I replace. So it will always get the audio, the sound closer to the end, okay? Obviously, these have a flaw, let me put it this way. If you have a audio that is very short, such as 0.1, and you have a longer audio that is 10 seconds, for example, but the shorter audio that might be not important is 0.3, for example. So 0.3, but it will end in less than 1 second. It might be not replaced if the other one, for example, that is 10 seconds long, is in the second 4, so 40%, so it's closer to the end. Okay, this is the flaw in here, but usually sound effect is not that long, but there is exceptions. So this is where that sound types and enumerations is good for. So if you have really long audios, basically reserve them there, okay? So I check if the player is selected. If it is, I replace the player string to the sound of that name and I return the player. Why I did not play here? Because there is way more things to set on. So we have the play 2D method. So the sound name at position the vector 2, so where the sound should be played, the direction of the player, the sound, the type of it, the priority if it's true or false, the playback position, so where the player should start, the area mask, so according to the documentation, it's like an effect of this sound. The example used is water, so if a sound is played under water, it will check right upon the mask you passed, and this mask will affect how this string would sound. Okay, the attenuation, so how soft the sound should start sounding, the max distance, so how far an audio should be heard, the panning strength, so if it is stereo, how much to the left or to the right it should sound, the pitch scale, so how high or low a sound should be modified in order to sound, the max decibels, so like the max volume in decibels, and the local volume is basically the volume that will be set in the audio stream player. It's something that I created, okay? So because we have the audio bus volume, right? So we will set through sliders. But if I have a sound that I want to like arbitrarily like lower than the other ones, I will use this local volume, okay? And here basically as created a variable called audio player, that is the audio stream player 2D, and I call the method I just showed you, that is the play sound, passing the name, the type, the array, and the priority. So if the audio player is set, if tree exist, because it might not exist depending how you manage the code, and if there is a current is seen, okay? So if they are, I just to make sure, I remove the audio player from the parent, then I assign to the current is seen. Okay, so basically I reparent. I'm pretty sure, I am almost sure there is a function that do this, but I'm sorry, I didn't remember. I set the global position of this audio 2D, because remember, this is a node 2D, so the position, the global position matters. So I assign the global position, I assign the direction, I assign the volume from the local volume, and I check if the area mask is passed. I assign if the attenuation is passed, like it's not -1. I also assign. assign the max distance depending on strength, the pitch scale, and I play from the playback position that is by default 0. Okay? Very comprehensible in my opinion. So the play 3D with a bit more parameters. So the sound name, the position, now vector 3, the direction, the type, priority, playback position, area mask, the attenuation, and this attenuation is actually the attenuation model. So how the calculation for the attenuation will be used, like which model? The logarithmic or the squared of the distance. The logarithmic one is when the function slowly goes down, right? Exponential is the one that goes get higher very fast, and the squared distance is the one that universal gravity law, I think, and the electromagnetic field as well. I'm pretty sure something like this. Like the distance will be felt by the power of the amount. I don't know. The attenuation cutoff. So the hertz you want to cut off. The filter. So all of this will basically will be used to modulate the how loud a sound should an audio should sound. The unit size. So this unit size basically is how much the one distance is. Like how much after certain amount of distance something should affect the sound. Basically will be used by the attenuation. The Doppler effect tracking. So the Doppler effect, how like in summary, is how waves of something will be affected by the emitter if the emitter is moving. So how short or how long the wavelengths will change. Something like this, okay? So if you have, for example, something that is very fast passing by you, emitting sound, if you are in front of it, you would see or listen or hear a sound or a color differently if you are, for example, if it passed by you and now you are behind it. It's physics. The emission angle and the emission attenuation. So depending the angle of the sound orange, obviously it would sound differently. The max distance, the penny strength, the pitch scale, the max dB I already explained, and the local volume. So the same idea, create a variable for audio stream player 3D using playing sound, passing the three parameters, and I check if the audio player already has a parent. I reparent, so I remove the child and then I add to the current tree. I set the global position that look at the volume linear, and I set the other things as well. I check if the area mask, attenuation, cutoff, filter dB. Remember, these are either null or -1, so you wouldn't like consider if you don't set anything. And the rest as well: unit size, max distance, penny strength, pitch scale, max dB, and in the end I call audio player.play, passing the playback position. Very easy, I think, to understand. It's very easy to use, at least, right? So the play audio. So this is not for 2D and 3D. Mostly these would be used by UI and some events or feedback you might want to pass to the player. So basically the same thing, the same basic thing. the sound name, the time, the priority, playback position, and the local volume. I create a variable, audio player. Now it's audio stream player without the 2 and the 3D. Call the method passing the 3 parameters. If it's set, and then I remove the current parent and assign to the current is scene, set the volume, and then I play it. So very simple. So now you have like a possibility to play any sound anywhere in any dimension you want, by and just call pass the parameters needed. Add players, the same idea of add buses. So basically you loop inside of the enum sound types. You append an array that is the current type, and you loop inside of the number. The number are the constants, okay? So I create a variable called player that is equals to class db dot instantiate the name of the class. So the parameter I think I didn't talk about. The class name, the number, and the array. So the class name, if you want to use this class db, so this is a dynamic way to instantiate. This would or work only from like native Godot classes. If it is a custom class like we created, we wouldn't be able to do this. We actually would need to use source.new, I think, or instantiate, depending if it is a class or if it is a script. So we would actually load this script and then assign it, okay? So I set the autoplay to false. The bus equals to the bus from the enumeration. The max polyphony to 2. This remember that I made that calculation to get the sound sound closer to the end. There is this polyphony in on Godot as well. That is basically the same audio stream player would be used to play more than one sound, and if it reaches the max amount, it would replace the oldest sound. So that thing I did already exists on Godot with this max polyphony. But I wanted to make my own because I am more able to control how I want this. In my case, I use the ratio. To be honest, I don't know how this polyphony, like the metric this used, okay? Then the array passed in the parameter I in the position of the sound type. I append the current player. If n is greater or equals to max sound players, I break. Actually, this is wrong. This should be number. So if n is greater or equals to the number, I break. So this is just to not make more than we want, okay? I'm sorry this mistake. I'm really tired. I didn't sleep today, and I coded this for 8.5 hours. I'm really tired. I didn't sleep. So change volume method, passing the name of the bus and the volume. So I create a variable, the index, and I use a match. So if you don't know, the match is basically the switch case. So if the name of the set parameter name is equal to music, so it's the bus 1, ambient is bus 2, UI is bus 3, general bus 4, vibe bus 5, input bus 6, and in order to avoid exceptions, errors, I set a default value that is just an underscore equals to index 1, that is the master, and I also update the name as well. So I update using audioserver.setBusVolume linear, passing the index and volume divided by 100 because the volume a linear goes from 0 up to 1. It's a floating number and it is decimal. So 10% of volume is 0.1. You could, like if you have a slider, you could set the slider goes from 0 to 1 and actually multiply to the label, okay? But I'd rather just divide and multiplier inside of the audio manager, okay? So I don't have to do it for every single place I want to like have the reference of the volume, you know? Then I update the config file setting the value, passing the section audio, the current name slash volume, formatting to replace the X that is inside of these curly braces to the name lowercase, and the value is volume divided by 100. Okay, so that's the reason we should have the name very correctly, and that's why I added the default value for the match. Okay, so this is kind of overkill, but I wanted to have everything centralized. So I created this list output and list input that basically return a packed array string calling autoserver.getOutput device list and get input device list. So this is very redundant, okay? But I wanted to have this in my audio manager because if something happened in the future or I want to change anything, rather to change in every single file, I use this method get output or get input device list. I just change in here, okay? So even though this seems redundant, because the method is basically returning another method value, but it's because of this. If something happened in the future or I want to change something, I just have to change only in one place here, okay? So besides the listing, change output and change input as well. So I with the parameter our name, right? So I set audio server dot output device should equals to the name, and then update the config file set value audio output name and audio input name. Okay, so basically this is how we change the output device. We basically update the auto server dot output or input passing the name. The default name of the devices are default, okay? But I wanted to highlight that since I'm making this in my cell phone because I didn't fix my laptop yet, I am not able to test these in the on computer. So it might be different. To be honest, I don't know. Now the ready function. So I basically call that same five lines of code, right? Add buses, load, and in the end of the ready function, add the players AutoStream player 2D, and AutoStream player 3D, passing the respective constant numbers and the array. But in the middle, as you can see, I set the music player process mode to always, so my music should never be paused. I assigned the bus because where I create the sound players, I set them automatically, but for the music not. So I set this manually, music. I connect the signal finished to that method, and I add child to the node because remember this should be processing. And I also do this to that part, to the nodes that I said that would be used to the VoIP and to the audio recording. So the player process mode, the input player process mode always as well, the buses from the microphone and the player input, I add both players, and I also set the input microphone stream equals to audio stream microphone dot new. Okay, here we go. In the process function, here where it's commented is where you would use the peer connection, okay, for and not actually only the peer connection, but also any type of multiplayer connection. Okay, so here is where you would set this. There is a tutorial. I don't remember if it is on Godot or in the Reddit, but there is a tutorial where you can just read and understand. It's very easy. But basically here you would set the packet of the audio in the process. And for the recording, as you can see, so upon the input action microphone is released, I set the recording of my microphone, of my record effect to false. I set the audio recording equals to the recording effect dot get recording. I save the file that is, remember, is an audio string WAV. So I save it to WAV, passing the path that is audio.wav. You might want to actually let the user set the name. This is just to test, okay? But to be honest, the chances I use microphone recording is very low. That's why I don't even like made an example else. So if the microphone is just pressed, so I just started, I set the recording to true, and I input and I call play in the input microphone, because if you want to record something, you have to play it. Okay, so it start to be updated. And here these things are for the connection, the server or the peer-to-peer connection. So in the enter tree, I would set the multiplayer authority. I also created this peer connected. I would also create need a method peer disconnected as well, in order to remove or create, depending my game, an audio stream player or audio stream player 2D or audio stream player 3D. Okay, and I would, and in my, like, how I make and probably there is no much options other than this, how I make multiplayer connections. I create two methods, one to send the packets and the other one to receive it. So I handle the receiving inside of that method. And for the audio, we also need this as well. So I have two methods, the send of the packets and the receiving. And in the receiving, I set the playback equals to the sound, to the output we want to have it. So it would depend on the peer ID. And I loop inside of the packets. I push the frame to the playback. Okay, so this is very, very simple. Like, in my opinion, this is the best code so far I ever made for Audio Manager, and it worked how I intended to. As I said, I didn't test for computer. I didn't finish for multiplayer VoIP, and I like took certain decisions, like for the random music and etc. So you might want to have something different. I would have things different depending the project. Okay, so don't get like too worried if you want to change something. So now let's go to the other parts. So I created certain components. So the first one in here is these input, where the user would select which device they want to have as the input. As you can see, it's just an 8 box with a label and an option button. Here in the script, and here in the script, I loop inside of the list input. and I add the item. So to the item, you might like there is more possibilities to set. You can set the icons, you can set the IDs, but in order to make it easy, just by calling add item and passing a string, you are able to set it. Okay, and I also check if there is something inside of the config file. If it is, I update the selected this number right here to equals to audio manager equals to find passing config file input. If not, the default, that is the -1. Okay, and open the option button signal item select being called, I change input. So I call that change input, that basically update the auto server dot output or input, in this case device. Okay, so I also did for the input as well. It's the same thing. All right, you might want to have the same class and the same scene, but I didn't make. I just wanted to finish, so it's literally the same script, so you might want to actually have, but it's like you will have something different, you might want to handle things different. Okay, it's up to you. Here is the container slider. So as you can see, an HBox again, a label for the audio bus name. The second is the percentage, and a slider with a drag ended and value changed signals. Also a script, and here we have export name, the rich text label for the name, for the value, that is the percentage, and the slider. In the ready function, I update the name of the label, that is the audio bus name. So as you can see, something volume is equals to dot format x, name capitalized, so the first letter will be capital and the rest lowercase. I check if Audio Manager has a config file. If it is, I update the slider value equals to the config file in that section audio, passing the name underscore volume, passing the name to lowercase with the full value 100 times 100. Actually, you don't need the times 100 because this 100, because the time 100 would solve this already. I'm sorry. I'm sleepy, as I said. Now the both signals. So on the value change, I call the change volume, passing the name of the audio bus and the value, and I also update the label equals to the string, that is the int version plus the percentage. This int is just to get rid of the decimals, the decimal point, and the decimal numbers. Okay, and the drag ended as well. But in this case, the drag ended, I call the audio manager dot save function. So if the player hold the slider, the volume would change. Okay, upon the player releasing releasing the slider, so the configuration would be saved. Okay, I printed there. I will. Okay, so cool. So lastly, this canvas layer settings. So as you can see, I have a panel that have a slightly opaque background. I just changed the style in here to this color with 20 of alpha. Another panel in the center, a 640, 580, centered, an HBox container, and inside of this, the name of the settings panel, the settings, and a tab container. So the tab container, that tab name will be equals to this node name. So you actually need to match this node name. Okay, here I have an HBox in order to center this VBox. Okay, so this HBox is center, and this is begin. Why is this? Because let me show the code actually. So here is the code. I have the scenes of the volume, the output, the input, and the VBox I want to populate. Here in the ready function, I set the output, that is the eScene instantiated and then added to the VBox. Input the same thing, and then I loop inside of the audio bus count. I instantiate each one. I assign the name of the audio bus, and then I add the to the VBox. Okay, guys, so now let's test. As you can see, my audio output and input is only one, the default. This, I think it's because of the how Android works. That's why, as I said, I don't know if this is working on computer. But let me change the values in here, close, then play again. So as you can see, our config file is working. So if I have something in the general volume, would be played with 21% of the volume. But if I have something of the ambient, it would be played in the 61, and every single one of them would be modified by the master volume. Okay, very cool. Now let's try another thing. Remember the microphone input, so I will try to hold my finger down and I will try to say something and check if my audio is being recorded. Okay, so for example, I like potato. I'm hearing myself. I hope this is being captured in the recording, but I heard myself. And now this file was created, as you can see, audio WAV. And here in the audio manager, I will uncomment this here. So this will be my audio A, okay? And here is will be my music as well. So now I will use this file to the other examples, okay? So here in the 2D, for example, I have this sprite that would signalize something. I have my camera 2D and an audio listener 2D. So understand that for audio stream players, you don't need to have a listener. But for 2D and 3D audio stream players, you actually need a listener. So add this to the camera and set the current equals to on. If you have more than one listener, you would need to manage this current. Okay, I also have a timer that upon every 2 seconds will play our sound. Here I made a very simple script in order to show you. So here in the ready function, I would play the music one. That is now my audio saying something. And in the input, upon I tap in something, I would dislocate my camera. So now you would be able to check the hearing and the 2D part. And upon the timer timeout, that sprite, in quotes, that sprite would play a sound. In this case, A in the type UI, and in the second version, that is the 2D, would play in the general with these settings. The area mask is -1, the attenuation is 0.8, the max distance is 2000, and the pitch scale and the max dB and etc. So for example, now I will uncomment this. So open I start this scene, my in quotes music should start being played. So let's check. I like potato. I like potato. Okay, well, terrible, but worked as you can see. Let me comment this. And now I will remove this return right here. So this audio, this part of the audio should be played. Okay, so now I like potato. Every 2 seconds, like potato. This audio will be played. Potato. Very terrible. I don't want to hear this again. So let me comment this part. So this is just a normal sound. It's not 2D. The next one will be 2D. So this, the next, should be affected by distance. So let's check. Okay. I'm listening. Let me try to get a bit closer. Okay, it worked. As you can see, the distance affect how loud our uh, sound is being played. So okay. Lastly, here I created this very simple and disgusting 3D scene. As you can see, a mesh instance that is a cylinder with a character body 2D and a collision shape, but it doesn't matter because I don't do anything in the code. This actually rectangle, like cube, static body and collision shape, whatever, because nothing this is affected by the physics. A camera 3D facing our cylinder. So as you can see, this is the preview. The audio listener, I set the Doppler to idle and current check on, remember? And I just added this direction light just to not get a very dark scene, okay? And the timer as well. So now here, as you can see, in the process, I basically moving the camera forward. Actually, it's left, but I rotated the camera. That's because it's the left goes forward, but this is basically moving the camera forward. Okay, and upon the timer timeout, it should play an audio. It's the same thing of the 2D example, but on 3D and with a bit more like settings, but it's the same effect. So now if I hit play, I like potato. 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 There you go. As you can see, getting lower and lower, soft and soft. So that's it. As I said, this is the best version of Audio Manager I ever did, and it's not complete yet. I still needing to make the VoIP, and I needed to make the server that I am kind of procrastinating, delaying it to bring here to the channel. But it's basically this, okay? For the most part of the games you will ever make, probably this will already good. So I hope this was useful. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.